Hey guys, welcome back to Just a Geek in the Garage. Today I want to talk about a hotly debated subject, Icon versus Snap-on. And did Icon just simply rip off Snap-on? I have been a tool user almost 30 years. Started using Snap-on about 25 years ago. And obviously Icon is fairly recent. I've only been using Icon for maybe about a year or two. But as you can see here in front of you, I have a bunch of duplicate pliers. They all look to be almost identical, but the ones on the top are Snap-on, and the ones below them are going to be their Icon equivalent. One disclaimer: this yellow pair is actually Caterpillar branded, but if you guys do some research, you'll know that Caterpillar is made by Snap-on, or at least supposedly is made by Snap-on. Looks identical when you compare the two pliers. So this is since I don't have the Snap-on equivalent. Branded at least, I'm going to put this one in its place. But as you can see, we have, what do we have here? 7 sets of different pliers. And as we look at each one, you're going to see how close Icon is to them. A lot of people would say, why would you buy the Icon equivalent if you already own the Snap-on? Well, I love tools. I love comparing tools and things like that. Also, sometimes it's useful having multiple sets if you need to take something with you, go bag. If I take an Icon with me that I paid $15 for, I'm not going to be as worried about it as a Snap-on that I paid $60 to $100 for, as some of these pliers range in the Snap-on. So let's take a look. So as you can see, green is kind of my go-to flavor when it comes to tools. This one again is yellow just because it's Caterpillar. And this one I just happen to get a good deal on the black version versus the green, so I substituted that on that one. So let's take a look. Let's actually start off with this one since I had them in my hands first. So this is their pair of long needle nose, right? Both Snap-on and Icon. These ones actually, this one and I think the other version, the bent nose, it does not look to me as if they stole the Snap-on design, right? Because you can see completely different designs. This is fully solid in here versus this one has a lot more space, and the way they open is different. The handle shape is different. So at least on these, this is probably a design that Icon got from a different brand. So I'm going to set these ones aside for now and go on to the ones that look more similar, I guess is the best way to look at it. So if we move on to these ones, the long diagonal cutters, it's hard to see much of a difference. So, the only real difference that I kind of see is it looks like the angle here is a little bit different. Maybe that's how they got away with using this design. But outside of that, I mean, if I was to show you these with unbranded, you probably could not tell the difference. Grips look very similar. Feel is a little bit different, but I mean overall, here you can see a little bit different in the shape there. But again, overall at distance, if I showed it to you like that, it would be very, very difficult to determine whether you had a Snap-on or an Icon pair. And they've done this many, many times. So we got the long diagonals. This right here is going to be the regular diagonal cutters. Other than the little heat-treated stain here that Snap-on has, from the front here, they look very, very similar. All right, what else we got? We got this is, I believe, the 6-inch or the 7-inch needle nose. So even the tips look very, very similar, right? Even down to the talon grip on the inside. Got the classic slip joints right here, right? Even the button looks almost identical, right? Very similar cross hatching on the inside. The channel lock style pliers. And then of course one of their most recent additions, which is going to be the meme tool from Snap-on that picks up a nickel or a penny or whatever coin it happens to be. I mean, I haven't seen this style, at least a slip joint needle nose, by any other manufacturer other than Snap-on. But you know, Icon did their version. Only minimal difference. You can see there's a much larger gap. Oops, sorry about that. There's a much larger gap right here where it's a lot more flush in here. So having kind of seen the difference in, you know, 7 different pairs of pliers, you know, obviously Icon is borrowing from Snap-on. They do say that they have their own manufacturing process and design process, but obviously, you know, to me it looks like they probably start with a Snap-on tool and then make whatever tweaks they can just to kind of get away with the manufacturing process. As we all know, Snap-on, so it states right there, USA, versus Icon. Most of their stuff is made in Taiwan, so a step up from Chinese manufacturing, but still not USA made. But again, this one, you know, especially after a coupon at Harbor Freight, you can probably be had for somewhere in the $15 to $20 range, where something like this I think is closer to $70. So is it worth it to go with the Snap-on? Maybe. You know, I've used Snap-on, like I said, for a very, very long period of time. They were kind of the only game in town when it came to certain quality tools. But, you know, Icon, what I can tell you from using them for the last year plus is, are they the same quality? I would say no. They're probably 80%, maybe 90% of the quality of a Snap-on tool as far as doing what they're supposed to do, things like that. You know, the metal being as strong as Snap-on. Obviously, I think Snap-on is always going to win in that department. However, if you're not a professional user, is it really going to matter that you have 80 or 90% of the performance for a quarter of the price? I don't think so. You know, if I had to do it all over again and just have one tool brand, and I knew about Icon long ago, I probably would have stuck with Icon. Because again, both have lifetime warranties. Unless you're truly dedicated to only buying things in the US, no matter the cost, I think Icon stands up very, very well for the cost ratio, plus the fact that you can walk into any Harbor Freight at any time and just simply exchange it if it breaks. So, you know, if you're a DIYer, you know, at home type of person, then I say go Icon. You know, it's difficult to get access to a Snap-on truck anyways. You can always order them online, but I think the big, obviously, selling point of Snap-on is the relationship that you have with your dealer. I had a dealer 20 plus years ago that I used to use, and, you know, he was great. I could walk onto the truck with a warranty. I get the item immediately fixed, and he was there every single week, on time. We could always expect him when we needed tools. So for something like that, it's worth paying a little bit more for that kind of service. But if you don't actively have a truck, and, you know, you pretty much everyone has access to a Harbor Freight. So, you know, going online to pay $70 for this versus 15 or 20 for this, I think the Icons are a no-brainer. However, one thing I do wish Icon would continue to do, which they probably have in production currently, is have different sizes of some of these pliers. Every plier that I've showed you so far, there's pretty much, with the exception of the needle nose, there's only one size. So for example, for this one, they only have the, I think this is the 9-inch version, versus, you know, Snap-on. You could also get a little guy like this. It's the little 4-inch version, which is extremely, extremely useful as well. So hopefully Icon continues doing what it's doing. Quality is great. And then one actual note as well that other people have said is, when you actually look at the fit and finish, Icon actually beats Snap-on, at least in my opinion, because Snap-on always has these very rough edges over here, where where Icon is very, very smooth. My guess is this is where human intervention versus machine, which again, you're paying a lot more to have something like this assembled by, you know, an American in America, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, when you're paying 4 times the price and you see something like that, it does give me a little bit of pause. So again, this is just my opinion. You know, hopefully you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions, you want me to put anything head-to-head specifically out of these pliers or anything else, please leave a comment below. Thanks, guys.